What is up, fellow Kryptonians? I am back again to do another video of Superman and Lois fans react to the season finale. And I've done this before with The Flash. I've done it before with Titans season 4. So finally, it's time to go over what you guys posted in the comment section of my review. I want to bounce off what you said about what I said, or if you just left a general thought. I really enjoy making these videos. It's kind of like an extended, discussion video on the actual finale. And considering that Superman and Lois isn't going to be back for like a long time, if you think about it, with the writer's strike right now and everything like that, it's not going to be back at the end of this year, like come September. So if we're lucky, maybe mid-season 2024, but who knows? Maybe there needs to be more videos like this in the next year because we might need it. But anyway, guys, I hope you go on to enjoy this video. Your comment might be featured. We're going to be getting and diving into even more of the questions that we had coming out of that season 3 very, very interesting finale. And I would just appreciate it if you like this video. Consider subscribing for more videos like this on the channel. And hey, are you on Instagram Threads? I am now threading my threads on Instagram Threads. Follow me. The details should be somewhere over here. BobaTalks. I have Instagram as well, but I don't use it as much as Twitter, so Threads is actually quite interesting to me. Thread with me. Dwayne Armstrong 8860 says here, the cliffhanger definitely gave off season 1 Flash finale vibes, with it ending in a WTF way, not knowing the fate of the hero. I agree with that. Yeah, when Flash went into the portal, I mean, we all knew it was going to be okay. Same with Tyler Hoechlin's Superman. It's not like they're going to die, but it's still cool canonically, right? Especially with, actually, we don't know how things will pick up. Same thing with the Flash season 2. We strictly didn't know how season 2 episode 1 would pick up. Same with season 4 episode 1. Lex and Superman standing in front of each other on the Kent farm seemed biblical in a way. Pretty much everybody's stories were just about wrapped. I'm assuming Sam is going to be pronounced dead. The more people have said that, oh wow, this comment gets a bit bigger, so let me read it all. The more people have said that, I'm starting to believe it. I said in my review that would just be awful. Because, seeing a character like that just be as popular as he is to us fans, be killed off screen, and the last we saw of him is just getting tasered, it just seems really lame initially. But maybe they can orchestrate the scenes and the way Lois finds out about it. Maybe when Superman comes back after killing Doomsday or defeating him or whatever, right? He also tried to save Sam or something like that. And I can imagine they would conduct it in a way that is, directed, and the cinematography, there's a soundtrack, not a CW one, please, not the type, no, none of that. Something classy. Clark comes through the door, and you just know what's happened with Sam. And then as the camera's going through that opening Kent farm door scene, it lands on Sam Lane's picture. No words spoken, but the cinematography of the scene speaks volumes, if you know what I mean. And then in subsequent scenes you can get into it. That might be the most artful, if I do say so myself, ignore me if you want to, but something like that, somewhere in that sphere of approaching it. If they want to kill Sam Lane off screen, which they might have to since he isn't coming back, that would be the way I would appreciate it. Because any other way where they're like, oh, Sam Lane died, what? Do you know what I mean? Make it emotional, make it dramatic and tasteful as possibly you can. But if he doesn't die, yeah, maybe that is even weirder, because it's like, oh, Sam Lane got freed, but now he's so sick of the dating game. Jordan made him try again, but he got completely catfished by Gretchen and tased. He's kind of tired of being a military person. He's just gone. That would be hard to believe as well. So again, the more I'm hearing this from you guys, the more I'm thinking maybe he is pronounced dead, which would be gutting. And I do think they could tackle that in a very cool way. John, Henry, and Natalie are moving to Metropolis. Yep, so I assume the Kents will follow. The epic battle between... before we move on, maybe, because that could be a way of maybe not putting Lana in it as much. Kyle and Chrissy and Sarah. I think it's out there that maybe some actors will be returning. It's just not for series regular positions, which I understand. For example, some aren't returning at all, like Sam Lane, straight up. But at the same time, it's not like you might not ever see one of these regulars that we've had on the show the past few years again throughout some point in season 4. So that's why Metropolis might work. That epic battle between Doomsday and Superman was so dope and phenomenal. Bizarro was teased as Doomsday in season 2. That is true. I mean, a lot of people are saying, oh, it was obvious, but then it wasn't, because it was a misdirect, because it was Bizarro. But then they double misdirected us because Bizarro did actually end up becoming Doomsday. So that is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Lex is the devil. Judge Reagen didn't deserve to be killed. He killed her, and he possibly killed Sam. Now his mission is to kill Superman so he can kill Lois. Season 4 is going to be insane, and bodies will drop left and right. I hope so. That'd be pretty dramatic. I can definitely see them doing a reign of Superman story arc in Season 4, especially since Kal-El/Clark/Superman is possibly dead because of Bizarro/Doomsday. They could do that, but I'm just worried that with 10 episodes, I haven't entertained the death theory as much. The actual death of Superman, let's just say they both thunderclap each other and that mortally wounds them both at the same time. Maybe Jordan recovers the body, but like... And I can see them doing that, but just I hope that between episodes, like what they did in the most recent episode, there was like a month between like episode 12 and 13 or something like that. So maybe they can do it, and Clark might be dead for like the first or second episode, but by that point, a month or two would have already gone by, and by episode 3, he will be back. But maybe they'll just actually bring him back by episode 2. I would love to know your guys' thoughts on that, because with limited time, I don't know if I want Superman to be gone for too long, but it could lead into some potential, as long as he's back by no later than episode 3. And the reason why I think I'd be okay with that is because it'd make Lois pretty terrified, because not only would Sam Lane be dead, DOD protection, she may still have it out of them honoring that, but her father, the guy who rules that, is dead, right? Superman is seemingly dead, so... all she has is Jordan protecting her. Like, sure, you could argue she's got other friends like Steel and Natalie and stuff, but long story short, guys, I think that'd be pretty dope with Lex thinking he had like the major upper hand. Sam Lane's gone. Superman's gone. You've got nothing left, Lois Lane. But little does he know, like, he's got a literal Smallville Samaritan Superboy there. So do that for the first 2 episodes, and maybe bring Clark back, end of BVS gravity, lifting the dirt style, in the final scene of episode 2, season 4. I just wrote the beginning of the season, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joking, but let me know what you think of that idea. Anyway, carrying on. Oh, wait. They could have Jordan Superboy. So I swear to God, I did not read whatever I'm about to read next, so I have no idea if you actually just said what I've just said. They could have Jordan/Superboy, John Henry, Steel, Tal-Rho. Oh yeah, Tal-Rho could come back. That'd be pretty cool. To fill in the Superman's shoes until we... Okay, so this is a bit different. You could toss in these other characters. Maybe you could have John Henry say, like, Lois, I'm here for you if you need me, and I'll be here in seconds in my suit from Metropolis. But I do think it would be a lot more tense and higher stakes if they just leave it to Jordan. Because Jordan's still a kid, granted he's half Kryptonian, so obviously it should be okay, but that's a lot of responsibility to protect your mother from a psychopath such as Lex Luthor. If you have Tal-Rho and then Steel, I feel like that makes it a lot less of a stakey plot, if you know what I mean. Plus, Lex doesn't know about Jordan having powers. That would be the ace in the hole for Lois. Yeah, to be protected from Lex and his devilish plans. I don't think I want Tal-Rho back. No offense to the actor or the character. I love the character, but what I'm trying to say here is, if you have Tal-Rho come back when Clark is missing, what is the threat from Lex? Like, Doomsday, by the time Clark is back, would have been defeated. So you have Superboy, Superman, and Tal-Rho by like episode 4 or 5, all against Lex. Like, it would be way too outnumbered for him. That's why I like, you know, if I do say so myself, my approach where you don't even have maybe John Henry will say, I'm here for you if you need me, but like, by the time shit goes down, only Jordan is really there. But if you had Tal-Rho come over to help protect Lois with Jordan, I just feel as though it's a bit too much protection, and it possibly gives away Superboy's chance to shine and step up. And Jonathan's, I don't know what he can do, but maybe he would get like a fire extinguisher and be like, screw you, Lex. But yeah, I would rather it be kept to the boys, or namely Jordan. Anyone else, just it kind of overcrowds and takes away from the severity of Luthor's threat. We also have Nicholas Garrick is saying, and I never thought about this. Again, I feel like there's a lot of potential here for Jordan, if you keep it the way I am suggesting. At least, you know, fair enough if you want to expand on what I say, but that's the way I'm preferring for now. But Nicholas Garrick 855 also says here, I'm wondering if they will explore, since Lex had Sam Lane kidnapped him, how is Jordan going to react and handle the guilt of believing it was his fault by connecting him with the woman working for Lex, right? Will he feel remorse for that or blame himself if Sam is killed off as we know he's not returning. That is very true, because no matter what, Jordan set Sam up on the matching app. Now, granted, obviously, they took advantage of that and infiltrated it and set him up with Gretchen, but no matter what, I can imagine it's like a typical storyline they'll give where he feels bad about it, and Lois be like, you can't feel that way, blah, blah, blah. I get it, but it would just be really cool to add that into the mix as well. I'd be very down for that, very down. It could also really, like Sam Lane's death, if we do equip it as a strength, even though I do get how a lot of you, including myself initially, felt like that would be a cheap way to go, but we're not going to see him again regardless, so if they do choose to equip that in the story, this could propel Jordan's hatred for Lex even more. And they've already been talking about don't let his anger stew for much longer. And now his father might be absent for a couple of episodes when he's protecting Lois. Imagine the cocktail of adolescent, half Kryptonian, who's already a bit aggy with his parents for like not letting him fly and save people for understandable reasons because he's getting a bit of an ego. Imagine all of this like boiling because now Grandpa frickin' Sam Lane's dead. Your father's now gone because this one guy, Lex Luthor. This could be really cool if Lex tries something and Jordan's just like, bitch, please, do you know who I am? But then I don't know how they're going to handle that, because is he really going to reveal himself as Superboy? Because then Lex will put together that Lois Lane has had kids with Superman, and then Lex will put together who Superman is, and then now Jordan will be in danger, and next time he'll bring kryptonite ammunition and guns. So yeah, there's a lot of potential for no matter what, when you view season 4 with Lex Luthor involved, even if you want to disagree with some of my suggestions here or just kind of explore them roughly, let's just say hypothetically, somewhere I was going in the right direction, there's a lot of severity and stakes here with what they can do with Lex, and it just sounds so interesting the more you think about what they can do, because I don't think anything of what I've said is the somewhat cliche fan thing, like taking it way too far. Do you know what I mean? All of what I've said and suggested to me feels like, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's something that could easily fit within the confines of next season's story. So even just acknowledging that, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, I'm not counting on it happening, because I never think you should do that with theorizing, by the way. You just set yourself up for disappointment if you thought something was going to happen in a movie or a show. But just trying to do a vibe check of season 4's plot, that would be really cool if they go remotely anywhere in this direction. Up next, we have JVIT TV saying, it is really cool seeing a different take on Lex's motivation. Even in the CW crossover, it's all about all Lexes wanting to kill Superman. This Lex having beef with Lois instead, and Superman just being in the way, as I said in my review, creates a really fresh dynamic for the character that I've never seen. Plus, he had 17 years in prison where he ran the prison, and Lois's reporting is also what set him free. So even his hatred for her is seen as a little cheap, but it kind of adds to Lex's madness, which makes things interesting as well. And yeah, no, so I had some, it wasn't, I don't know if I would call it criticism, because I said in my review that I actually really like that Lex, his targets for once, his sight is set on Lois. It is still set on Superman. I mean, for crying out loud, he wanted to get rid of Sam Lane. He wanted to kill Superman as well, so he could get to Lois. He gave Lois a chance to stop writing articles for the Smallville Gazette, never to report again. Her words put him away. He never wants anybody to be able to read her words again. And I kind of like this because it's a bit of, as you say, like there's a weird method to his madness here. You could argue that he could just kill her, but maybe on some level, even though he's enraged that even though he told her that he was innocent 17 years ago, this, that, and the other, as Lois said, the evidence didn't support that, so she did what she does. So maybe he understands that, but he's like, look, I'm not going to kill you, but I will if you don't do what I tell you to do right now and how it's going to happen, as he says in the episode. So I like that. But I was saying it's just weird that, sure, Lex got his opinions about Superman across in the typical way. You're just a guy wearing pants and a cape and stuff like that. But it appears as though there's no history between him and Lex, other than him knowing of him, right? Now, some people have replied in my review saying, no, like, they said this about having met before. And I'm like, I'm telling you, look, I will hold my hands up if I'm wrong. I really will. But I've even skimmed over the episodes because I thought I was going crazy. I don't think there has ever been a line acknowledged by Clark or Lois in where they say, this isn't like before Clark, like 18 years ago, 19 years ago, where you ran up against him before. He's had 17 years to stew over this. He's going after us big time now, Clark. Like any one line like that would have just given something to be like, okay, Superman and Lex have come across each other back in the day. And to be honest, this would have been back in the day, like quite back in the day, because don't forget, Jordan and Jonathan are like 15, 16 years old. Now, Elizabeth Tulloch is 42, but you have to think that Lois and Clark are older than 42, because when we've seen flashbacks of them in the Daily Planet, unless they had kids or Lois got pregnant when she was 26 years old, which I don't think they were that age then, and Clark becomes Superman at 25, or sometimes most often after that at 28. Do you see what I mean? If you really take into account the dates of how old Lois and Clark are probably in this universe, let's just say you want to round it up to like 46. That means Lois would have got pregnant with the boys at around 30. Superman's been around for around 2 to 5 years at that point as actually active in the Cape. That would roughly mean that Lex Luthor being put away 17 years ago would mean that Lex got put away when Clark was like 29 and Lois was 29, if they're the exact same age, that is. So all I'm trying to say is there's not much room for when roughly Clark starts becoming Superman and Lex to interact. But like even with me like BSing and trying to give some age explanation to you guys there, they've not given us a line. However, I'm not trying to sound cocky about this. If you can timestamp and tell me the episode when they've ever inferred that some kind of line, like ambiguous line, where it's been like, oh, as I said a minute ago, Clark, this isn't like that time when you were up against him when he was going at Moxie for like that territory they were scrambling over in the South Metropolis. Because any line like that, I would have remembered. I feel like I would have remembered, and it would have given some kind of like, oh, okay, Superman and Lex aren't necessarily like mad arch enemies in this version, but they have come up against each other. But to my knowledge, that is not the case. They've never once done that. In this version, as I said in my review, Superman's just in the way. And sure, Lex doesn't like the ideology or idea of Superman anyway. Like, he thinks he is a idiot in tights and a cape who's not really a hero. I thought that scene with them standing there was great, and all of that was very Lex Luthor to Superman. And he has these thoughts about Superman anyway, but that's all they are, because back when he was, as Clark said a few episodes back, Luthor and Moxie were feuding over territory in South Metropolis. He just wanted to send a message. That's what they thought he did through killing Moxie. Lex back then probably saw Clark flying around for the first couple of years of his career and just thought, you're not a hero. I know I keep rambling at this point, but please point out to me where they've blatantly, I need it to be obvious, inferred that Clark has had run-ins with Lex Luthor. Because as far as I'm concerned right now, unless one of you guys does comment, and I'll circle back around on this in a future video if that's the case, Lex Luthor's relationship with Superman is just more or less an opinion. He doesn't like him. He has to take him out, and he's always resented the idea of him. So, hey, I need to get to Lois Lane anyway, and I know you have a somewhat professional relationship with her in his mind. So I need to kill you. I need to kill Lois's dad. And that's it. The main beef is with Lois, and I have no issue with that. It's just weird that there's not a simultaneous history with Superman as well. As I said in my review, I'm cool with the beef with Lois. It would have just been cool if there was also context there in the past with Superman and Lex. Now, I wouldn't be surprised, one thing I do want to say, before any of you comment it, that I wouldn't be surprised if in Season 4 they write that in anyway. Like how 19 years ago, flashback, Superman did foil one of Lex's, things he tried to do in South Metropolis when he was like struggling for power between Moxie at the time. That gave him this reputation of the devil back then to people like Pier, right? And Superman may have just been a thorn in Lex's side. That gave Lex this opinion of Superman, of what he said to him when they were standing face to face. But I still don't technically think this makes me wrong currently, because as far as I'm aware, unless you want to prove me wrong, feel free to do so. I'm more than happy for that. They could have done that in a one-liner in Season 3. Why didn't they? If they're just going to do it in Season 4. But either way, I'm going to shut up about that. It's not the end of the world anyway if they don't do that in Season 4. And the canon is that, don't get me wrong, Lois and Clark have known about Lex. They've even actually had a run-in with him to the extent of where Lois contributed to him being put into jail. But as far as like proper full-on interactions and classical Superman Lex Luthor vibes in the past before he was put into jail 17 plus years ago. They might just be like, oh, we knew of him. He was an evil bastard, but he only kind of got put in jail when I just was like a year and a half into Superman hood. And he was too sneaky for me to ever like grab him by the scruff and fly him to Metropolis PD. Do you know what I mean? Because it's Lex Luthor and you can't just bring people into jail without evidence. So again, for everything I'm observing, it might be that way. Anyway, from Joel Miller, 431, 102 upvotes, my friend, interestingly. Honestly, it's so tragic of how Bizarro's life went downhill when you look back on his whole arc in Season 2. I agree. There still was some humanity there. And that's what was very, very sad about it. And yeah, I called him a nice guy when we last saw him, because if you think about it, last time we saw Bizarro with any kind of humanity left, he came to our Earth. We had Superman's mother, Lara, literally release the shield saying, help my son, and he nods. And then he goes to take out Lieutenant General Anderson, and Anderson kills him when he's literally helping fight to save our Clark and Tal-Rho at the time, I believe it was. So, you know, that's when he died. It was pretty sad. Don't get me wrong, he fought our Superman, but it seemed like, you know, there was something left there, the very fact that he was saving our Superman's life. So then he gets brought back to life. Initially, I think there is absolutely no humanity left in him, but then they show that there is. Like, he's literally crying before he agrees for Lex Luthor to kill him again and again and again. Which he may have very well agreed to, because what does he have left? Again, I think that's more debatable. Again, that's the thing that makes me feel like, you know, if there's some humanity to the point of this Bizarro agreeing to become Doomsday, but the humanity being he's crying his eyes out, just kind of hating what he's become, would he really follow Lex Luthor's orders? Would he really go on to do this? Maybe there is an argument for it. Maybe. But I just wish maybe that they kept him that husk zombie person, because then it's a lot easier to believe. But then, to be honest, maybe that would reflect Batman versus Superman too much, with how, you know, you had General Zod's body transformed into a somewhat proto-Doomsday from what we've heard from Snyder. There wasn't really any personality there. Perhaps they wanted to avoid that, offer some kind of sadness to this version of Doomsday and how it was like this inverse version of Clark. Again, don't forget, we've seen flashbacks of this Clark. And granted, he liked the fame, the family, you know, went out in the world a bit more with the fame. Same with the Jonathan Kent Superboy. But they were still nice people, even if things went to shit. He still lost everything, and he became this well, I don't know what you want to call it, this monster. And yeah, I agree, Joel. It is very sad and tragic how Bizarro's life went downhill. So this is where James P145 says, and I kind of do agree with this. Again, you have to, even with your subjective enjoyment of the show, and you guys know me, I love Superman and Lois. If you think critically about it, there is, you know, some truths to what is being said here. So this Lex and Doomsday relationship makes as much sense as the BVS Lex/Doomsday relationship. It comes out of nowhere with little to no setup, and we're just expected to believe that Lex could create a being like this. It is all very kind of convenient if you think about it. So, okay, Lex, I can believe, maybe wanted to look into what Bruno Mannheim was doing down in that abandoned train station lab place. He goes down there, arguably could have got killed. Like, I really do think my criticism stands there. Literally, Otis got grabbed, his ear got munched off, but it could have been disastrous, because at that point, for all we knew, and what they did display, Bizarro was literally a zombie. But it turned out he had a lot more humanity there, and he was just munching on rats because he had this insatiable hunger. But still, it could have been a lot worse for Lex and Otis. But even after that, he managed to take out Bizarro's Superman, and then I guess through looking at his hand, he knew he was becoming stronger. I mean, I know that he came back and he saw him get reanimated, because there was that whole conversation about, I thought you killed him. And Lex is like, I did. And then he came back, and then he somehow just through his hand rippling, he knew that he would get stronger and stronger. I mean, maybe I'm being stupid right now, but regardless, I just feel like it's like the stars aligned. If you think about it, for Lex Luthor, he got out of jail, fair enough. But then it's like, it's even better for him, because when he gets out, he has this ability, again, BVS-esque, like, if you know what I mean, with Jesse Eisenberg's Lex, where it's like, it's a good thing that Bruno Mannheim had this Bizarro guy down here. Oh, you have this feature where you get stronger? Oh, I'm just going to keep killing you as long as you agree. So hopefully you become this bigger thing. And hopefully after this, you follow my orders. Like, hopefully, I mean, kill Superman. I don't know why you would listen to me, but like, kill him. It's just, do you see what I mean? I wish they went a little bit more in depth. I think maybe Mannheim should have been a mid-season villain in terms of he got sorted out much earlier, even though I loved the performance there, and I really enjoyed the story, actually. But if they brought in Lex around episode 6, right, or 7, a bit earlier, like actually out of jail at that point, and then Bizarro Superman had a similar thing. We still found him eating rats, but then they explored a little bit more of that humanity there, the monster to Bizarro or something. Instead of actually getting captured by Lex first, maybe he flew around a bit more, and because of this insatiable hunger, he hated his existence, right? So Superman maybe encountered him a bit, they spoke a bit, maybe something like that, but because he couldn't help this vampiric hunger, he resented himself, he's lost everything, he doesn't want to exist anymore. So by the time we get to Lex offering to kill him and make him stronger than ever, and we had that moment where we saw Bizarro crying, that would have been even more impactful. Do you see what I mean? I just feel like it needed a bit more organic fleshing out. I just feel like the way we did see it, it was just like hopping stepping stones, but like skipping past 3 stepping stones. Like they were just jumping past it, which was still very entertaining with the end product that we got. It could have just been a lot more padded out. Manis up next says Superman vs. Doomsday is probably the best fight scene I have ever seen on a CW superhero show. The VFX team done an excellent job on the design of Doomsday and the fight scene itself. So, wow. Do you guys agree with that? If we think back to all the years of the Arrowverse, I mean, maybe it is. I'm not saying that it isn't. I'm just really trying to search through my memory banks right now, and, I'm getting older. They don't work as well, and to be honest, they never really did. I'm trying to remember all the fights, and the thing is, the one that's standing out to me right now is that really long format Oliver Queen fight, when it flashes back to when he was just killing people again and again and again. That was cool, and very cool, by the way, but what I guess we need to take into account here is it's maybe the overall best fight scene on a superhero show, what we saw in the season 3 finale, when you take VFX into account as well. Fair enough if you just want to like grade stunt work with what we've seen in Arrow before, but maybe this is overall the more impressive like comic book translation, Death of Superman-esque, because, they definitely gave us heavy nods at points. Superman and Lois did impress with the CGI. Don't get me wrong, at times it was definitely CW CGI, but I think what we can all agree with is that it was decent, very decent for a network, especially of that of the CW, effort into making this happen. So without rambling too much more, I mean, you've got fights with the Anti-Monitor back in the day, well, not so back in the day with Crisis on Infinite Earths, but like, honestly, I don't think that looked like great. I don't think the choreography was good. I mean, for crying out loud, I don't need to revisit Batwoman like punching the air and punching nothing. And yeah, I'm trying to think of other things. Maybe I am forgetting some things, but yeah, in recent memory, if you think about how long this fight went on, and you would have thought, okay, it's the finale, okay, it's going to go on a bit longer than what I expected to. So instead of giving it like 45 seconds of coolness, maybe they're going to give us a minute, but it kept going, and then it kept going, and then it kept going. That is where they surprised us in a very good way. So, yeah, I can't believe the CW did it on Superman and Lois, but they definitely gave us a Superman versus Doomsday, if you will, fight. That is probably the best we've seen. Like, even if you take into account BVS, you can tell in the CW, granted it's not remotely as expensive as Batman versus Superman's CGI budget, they wanted to take you to all these different locations. They wanted Superman to like be absolutely piled upon by Doomsday's frickin' punches and, smashing his head into pipes and steam going in his face, you name it. So yeah, if you want to grade it on comic book coolness, this one. My Dream in Orbit 9297 says, this was a great episode and a great season. What a recovery from the writer's room after season 2 Karen's shenanigans. Really surprised by how great Doomsday looked in the TV budget. So another person saying, I've seen a lot of people say, look at the CW CGI there, but I've seen more people say no, it actually looked really good for the CW. But anyway, we've talked enough about that for now. Yeah, I do agree. Like, Superman and Lois, don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed it the whole time it's been on air. But I think season 1 is leagues better than season 2. Now, don't get me wrong again. We got Bizarro in season 2. We got some really cool moments in season 2. But Parasite, Ali Alston, that stuff really started to make me eye roll. Not enough for me to get as irritated as I did over The Flash or any of the other CW shows. It's never got me to the level of wanting to be like, oh god, I don't think I can review this anymore. But I just didn't find Parasite compelling, whatever the heck was going on there. And then, like, the inverse world stuff, it was sometimes cool. Especially with Bizarro, when that stuff started firing on, really cool. I thought Lieutenant General Anson was pretty darn cool. But I think when we just got to Ali Alston, like, draining powers and just, like, flipping out the jewel and, like, the whole origin behind that just being kind of, like, okay, it's just definitely not as good. Now, don't get me wrong, this season, people have their criticisms, but I prefer this season of Superman and Lois, even though one of those criticisms I just mentioned that people have is the lack of superhero action, and I guess in season 2 you had more Superman. I'm not gonna lie, I would prefer more family drama storyline stuff and less Superman if it meant more quality writing like this, versus, oh yeah, you're gonna get more Superman in season 2 but a lot less or a lot more tacky kind of stuff. And I just think, should you even toss more Superman in a season if that's what you're gonna get? Do you know what I mean? At least this season, whenever we saw Superman, it was pretty damn decent. Like, from the get-go, Henry Miller going throughout Metropolis, popping up every now and again. There was like a forest fire with Jordan. Like, we didn't see him that much. And I know the Lois stuff felt a bit too intense for some people, and it felt a lot more family, way more family-oriented, even though it's already a family show, but you get what I mean by that. Everyone's saying that about this season. We needed a bit more superhero action, but I still wouldn't trade this season for more Superman versus Parasite-esque stuff of season 2. I actually really wouldn't. But having said that, season 4, I do think they need to find a little bit more of a happy medium, if they can, given budget cuts. Maybe it would stay a bit more like season 3. Which is a good thing and kind of maybe a bad thing for some people who wanted a bit more action. Anyway, so up next from Morgie39. I really enjoyed this season. I know some people didn't like Lois's journey, but I thought they treated it really authentically. You should do a comments video to Superman and Lois. Here we are. We have Hisham comment on this saying, I thought Lois's arc was one of the best things I've seen in a comic book show. Really handled very well. I know some people like really didn't like it. I know some people really liked it, but also were like, okay, I kind of feel like maybe you poured too much of this energy of making this season into, it's like what I was saying earlier, the balance of, okay, this is a family-driven show. We've understood that since season 1, but we do want Superman action in there. Season 2 accomplished that balance very well. Season 1 did as well. Season 2, don't get me wrong, I have my issues with what they did, and I said, if you are going to go with that way of putting more Superman in it and it amounts in that, then I actually rather what they've done here with season 3. However, I'm in the boat of where I really liked it. But I do think, again, it needs to be a bit more of a fine balance. Again, I don't want to go and preach about this, but this is a family show. It's always been that way. And ever since season 1, even though we got more of a finer balance, of which, again, we need that in season 4, it's always highlighted and reflected reality, whether that's in like, oh, if you're similar to Clark and Lois's age and you have teenage boys and what they deal with there, their experiences of having a family. Granted that some of it is an unrealistic experience because they're dealing with a super family, Superman. But that makes it the very show it is, right? Because it's interesting, it being Superman and Lois and family. It's always been interesting like that. And the people around Smallville, the community, it's always done this. So the Kansas storyline was always a completely natural one to implement and one that represented something of which a lot of people can relate to. I've seen countless people say, don't get me wrong, this has hit me really hard because I am currently experiencing a family member or have experienced a family member in this situation. Some people, again, liked that and could resonate with it, but for some people, that experience was maybe a bit too hard. And as a result, since it kind of went throughout the whole season, maybe it kind of dragged down the season in a dreary kind of sense. I think that's what some people are trying to articulate. Now, that doesn't negate quality. I just think it's so heavy-hitting that if you're really roped up in that, it can either be a good thing for you or quite a very depressing thing. But I'm just going to repeat myself one more time and say that I do agree that if this season could have somehow found a balance of doing a few more moments where... I'm not saying they had to recreate the Henry Miller versus Superman fight that we had at the beginning where they were like, that was some seriously cool stuff when they were smashing through the buildings. There was slow-mo in there. But if they did like 20-second blips of that every other episode or every other one, I feel like we only got like, the only other one I can remember is when Clark was fighting, what's his face? The guy who got all of the information on where Bizarro's body was located and stuff like that, even though Clark could have heat visioned the computer. Okay, I'm not going to nitpick. But you see what I mean? I remember that fight. That was pretty cool. But there wasn't a whole bunch. So I think if they managed to balance that well, it would have been like a insanely great season. Not that this season wasn't good, but I'm just saying if they really did balance that, that would have been, my God. But yeah, ultimately, I think they treated it authentically. I think it is a very authentic thing to even portray in the first place. And to give that to a character like, hey, how about if Lois went through something like this, and they're at the stage in their lives where they have family. Superman is there trying to look after her, but it gives him a threat that he can't save her from. It's also relevant. It's just that maybe some people might not care for it. That's the thing. Everyone has different preference. We all have our own subjective experiences with this and opinions, and I know for a fact some people really don't like it. Some people are saying like Lois was being selfish and stuff, but to me it's just like you're missing the point of how they're showing that she's going through the motions of being scared to commit to starting to go through chemo, all of this stuff, right? There's clearly people who feel different ways about all of this. But for me, I was really engrossed. I think a lot of people were. It showed a very human thing to a very exceptional family. And how are they going to get through that? And how is Clark? How does Superman deal with the fear of loss of his one true love? And there's nothing he can do about it if it goes south. I think it's great. But yeah, like no matter what, if they could have sprinkled in a teeny bit more for other people who were just kind of like waiting for this to move along. Maybe they appreciated Elizabeth Tulloch's acting. Maybe they appreciated the storyline to an extent. But there are, and fair enough, I'm not saying you can't feel this way. There are just people who really just... I'm like, okay, but I kind of want this. I want Season 2 storyline, even if it was Ali Alston again, over something as sad as this. And that's just taste, which is fair enough. Like, completely. Like, some people don't want to watch shows that are as deep as what this season got to. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I would love to ramble a lot longer, but I think I have rambled enough. I hope that you've enjoyed this discussion series of me reacting to your reactions to the finale. Again, expand on everything that I said in this video, because I feel like we went through some cool ideas here. So if you've made it to this point in the video, let me know. It's always cool seeing how many of you made it this far. And other than that, I just hope you have a lovely rest of your day. I would appreciate a like, maybe a subscribe if you're brand new here. But until next time, guys, I'll see you fellow Kryptonians in the next video. Goodbye.